I looked on the calendar, it was like August 20th. And so in this 48-hour period, I coordinated with my real estate agent, my lawyers, to get a corporation form and get them into the clerk's office by 5 p.m. Friday. We literally got it in at 4:20 p.m. that day.
Most people discover dabs at a dispensary or through friends. He discovered them at a virtual Burning Man and is now making robots to make the process easier. I'm Jason Raposa. After 25 years in tech and cannabis, I host High Functioning to show what actually works. Today's guest is Dab Riga. He's creating a solventless lab powered by industrial robots, community solar, and a plan to turn the company into a worker-owned cooperative. And he beat a Canadian MSO to get his license. We get into solventless truth, how municipalities really work, and why automation is coming for cannabis whether you like it or not. This is Real Strategy Over Hype. Let's dive in.
Chew, wait, hope. Hard pass. Pocket uses micro and nano-emulsification, so effects show up in about a quarter hour. It's the gummy experience without the gummy lag. Pocket your chill and keep moving.
Hey, Jason, I am Dab Riga, and I am the founder and CEO of TLEHL, which is a triple bottom line cannabis manufacturing and processing venture in northern New Jersey. And we are currently building out our facility. So we plan to launch early in 2026.
Wow, that is a lot of words that I'd understand. So really quickly, because you had said, so your last name is pronounced Riga?
Yes.
Okay, I keep on saying Riga for some reason. It's close enough.
Either way.
And Dab, that's your parents were like, all right, this guy's going to rep to do Dab, so let's name him Dab.
Yeah, that was a big trend about that many years ago, I think.
No, it's not my true first name. It is my real last name.
Okay.
So I took on this nickname Dab in the industry. And part of what motivated me to get in the first place was discovering that form of cannabis consumption and learning about dab rigs. And from there, in fact, it's kind of a funny story, if you don't mind. I'd like
let's go down that. So it's because dab rigs are a thing.
Yes.
And when I Google your name, it says, you mean dab rigs?
Now, I'm really glad to hear you say that. So that was one of my favorite things about doing this, because if you think about it, our industry is currently banned by Meta,
right?
Banned by Google AdWords.
Yeah.
So we couldn't pay. How much would we have to pay, first of all, to get that to pop up?
Right.
When we wanted it to.
Right.
And instead, I give out my business card, they're probably 1,500, 2,000 people. And now they're all being presented with what I like to call the Dabbit hole, instantaneously, like pages and pages of electronic dab rigs, glass dab rigs. And, for me personally, as a consumer, I didn't even know about that form of consumption growing up in New Jersey and New York City until COVID hit, until 2020.
Okay.
And it all changed.
So that's the entire world.
Yeah. So for me, so I think you've had a guest on before talking about Burning Man. And I've been to Burning Man a couple times when I was young too, like, twice in person. And then in 2020,
I had a virtual one?
I did. I went to the virtual one in 2020. And that is where I learned about dab rigs.
What?
So I was...
there was a virtual Burning Man?
Yeah, there was like all these
blowing my mind.
Different platforms. There was one with virtual reality. There was one with like the Sims type of avatars. And then there was one that was what they call a spatial video chat. And so there, you're on a map with a little character and two-dimensional map, moving your character around with the keyboard cursor. And there are other little characters moving around, but there are no NPCs. These are all other people. And when you get close to them, their audio and video fades in a little cute square.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah. And there's a couple of platforms. Topia is one, GatherTown is another. But I was there for virtual Burning Man, and there were literally thousands of people on this map going around, and many people that made, art that was similar to art cars and similar to Burning Man in this little, kind of gamified world. And I came across this guy from the West Coast there. And he goes by the name Nextro. So, in the Burning Man community.
Perfect.
So shout out to Nextro.
Yeah.
And, I came upon him, and, this was a festive occasion. So I had my ice bong out. I was meeting other cannabis consumers and having, momentary sessions. And so I come upon this guy Nextro, and he has a traditional glass dab rig, an elaborate one. I'm like, what is that?
That's a weird looking bong.
It's a dab rig. I'm like, actually, I asked him, I was like, what drug is that for?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's for weed, man.
Yeah.
This is a West Coast guy. And if, for people who don't know about Burning Man, it is really, among other things, the home of some of the most DIY people on the planet. These are people who will rip the exterior part of a car off and then put sheet metal on it to make it look like a flying saucer,
Right.
and then drive that to
To the
Nevada
yeah.
and parade around for 7 days.
That's wild. So like when I think of that stuff, because I remember first being introduced to dabs at the same time, being like, not what drug, but I was like, this looks different. Like, what is that all about? Right. But like so really clear to clarify for people who aren't, because I know you're a tech guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a tech guy too.
Yeah.
NPC means non-player character.
Yeah.
So not basically an NPC is somebody is like a computer-driven kind of avatar who's like walking around this world. But there was no NPCs, meaning that everybody was a human basically walking around this thing. So going from there though, like there's a big gap between the time from when that happened until the rest of it. So like, did you just go? Like, does your brain work super deep where it was just like, oh, I need to know everything about dabs now kind of thing?
Well, there was one other key piece of information he gave me. So at that point, I had already tried vape pens. I had already tried like BHO,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have the greatest experience with those products. And I ended up kind of writing them off as like, well, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And when I met this guy and he said this, I was like, oh, yeah, that's for that BHO and stuff, right? That's not for me. He's like, no, man, this is all solventless. So I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, no, you don't need any chemicals to make this stuff, man. He's like this West Coast guy. I remember it, it's etched in my memory. He's like, just go down to Harbor Freight, get yourself a 20-ton shop press and wire it up with some nichrome wire, and then you could just squeeze this stuff right out of the weed, man.
Yeah.
That's what it is, though. It's why it is what it is. And
One form of it anyways.
yeah. And so that really opened me up. And I was like, well, now I want to see if I can get some of this solventless. I tried that. And I was like, whoa, this is what I'm looking for.
So did you, like back then, you had to find it off the street kind of thing?
Yeah, I had a source that was able to get me, some from out of state.
Yeah.
And from there, I basically was like, no, this is it. I'm getting my own dab rig and I'm getting my own press. Yeah. And this is what I'm going to start doing from now on.
That's wild. High Functioning isn't your average cannabis podcast. It's where business, wellness, and culture collide with honest convos from people actually doing the work. Tap in at High Functioning Show and hit subscribe so you don't miss a drop. Now, back to the episode.
And
yeah, because I actually remember those days too, because I think so the company was founded in 2020, Good Feels, which is the maker of Good Vibes. But in 2019, I was doing washes with hemp. Because there's hemp, MDAR, which is regulatory body.
Cool.
Exactly. So 2019, I was like, let me get a bunch of hemp. And I was washing a ton of like CBD and CBG. And I remember kind of going down that same path, but I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't like inhale. I didn't smoke necessarily. So I was like, what do I do with all this material? I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I remember going into like Harbor Freight and finding like a 20-ton press and being like, all right, how do I do this? I ended up just buying like a press.
Yeah.
Like a basic press. Not like, I didn't want to DIY that part because I didn't know enough about it. Ended up DIYing a bunch of stuff after that. But like once I kind of started going down that path, it really was an education. So I think anybody who's in the industry should probably just learn about that process regardless, educating about the trichome pad, right? And things like that. And then you can think about Frenchy cannoli, which has come up many times on this thing, which is like the separation. It's not an extraction, right? Like all these interesting details that people who are hash practitioners abide by, right? We have a bunch of hash people been on the show. But I think about back to those days about like how like new and naive a lot of us were about like a lot of stuff that was happening in cannabis at the time. But you had to hit up a plug to go get like some hash or solventless. Well, like what was
That was like my first form was just a jar. I don't want to say the brand, but some jar that I got, and I've got some kind of e-pen style. I can't even remember what it was. I think I started with a Dr. Dabber type of pen, and then from there I was like, oh, I want to get a desktop rig, and I ended up going through a couple of different presses as well, kind of like as I scaled up. So now I have a press at home that I can do an ounce at a time.
an ounce at a time?
And that's kind of what I usually do in my process. And what I've been doing in New Jersey is going around with my own prototypes and really sort of, peppering the supply chain with this and say, please be aware that this is here. So it's going to be available soon.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you represent all of New Jersey right now, by the way, by being on here. Because you're our first true, I think, New Jersey specific processor that's ever joined the pod. So no pressure. But when it comes to Jersey itself, like, is there somebody who's doing it right? Whether it's a processor or stores or something like that, like, is there somebody that you look up to in New Jersey, current New Jersey market, and be like, they're actually doing a good job?
There are some cultivators and some vertically integrated companies that I have my eye on that I do like.
Do you find that you're hesitant though? Because is it competition in a sense to you?
Right now, I'm kind of negotiating supply agreements with some folks.
Okay.
I don't know that I want to pick public favorites right now, but I will say also that I think that we are very, in New Jersey, the whole industry is still very young. We legalized it in 2020, and then the market didn't really emerge until 2 years later in terms of kind of getting the regulations off the ground. So now we're really just in kind of year 3. We do have about 9 million people in New Jersey. The combined medical and adult use market did go over $1 billion last year. So it is, it's there, it's growing. I think we have about 250 dispensaries now. But what's another thing that's interesting about New Jersey is that it's a state that at the macro level is unlimited license, but at the micro level is a very limited license.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that. So if you're talking about, say, between regulators, landlords, capital, what is the biggest bottleneck right now?
So in New Jersey, writ large, there's a whole other tier there, which is the municipal home rule tier. And that's what I was just alluding to. So in New Jersey, every one of, I think, 565 municipalities in New Jersey gets to decide which and how many, or if at all, of the different license classes will be permitted in that municipality.
Okay.
And I think 4 out of 5 municipalities have said none at all.
Right.
And
So at the local level, they just ban it outright, even though it's unlimited.
they can't ban consumption at the local level, but they can ban
The license.
industry at the local level.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we see a lot in Massachusetts too, right? So in Massachusetts, it comes down to a lot of local politics.
Yeah.
So if you're not able to convince that local municipality, then you're just out of luck. Like, there's no way around it. So and they do it through zoning.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They just say like, hey, you can, if you want a store, sure, but it's in the corner of like the industrial park.
Yeah.
700 feet deep into some driveway or something like that. And you can't put a sign up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how is this going to work?
Yeah, that is a shame. I remember the first time I came up to Massachusetts actually I have some extended family up here. But also I was like, maybe I'll do a little can of tourism in Massachusetts now that they have some dispensaries up there. And I remember the dispensary I went to was somewhere a little north of here. It was somewhere north of Worcester. So I, not knowing I was getting myself into, I drove up, and there was a security guard at the entrance off the street in like, oh no.
Keep on going.
Yeah. I was like, all right. So I keep driving and there's signs pointing. I drove like a half a mile down this desolate road.
Yeah.
And then there was a parking lot with a bus shelter.
Yeah.
And then we all had to wait for a shuttle bus to take us to the dispensary
What year was that? That must be like 2021.
I think it was
21 maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Take us to the dispensary and take us back to the parking lot.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So it's pronounced Worcester, by the way, before I...
Pretty close, though. I almost had it.
Worcester. Sorry, because this is the whole thing we're going to battle now.
Okay.
Also, we've had New Jersey people on here, just not people representing the licensed industry. That's why, just to caveat that, because John Nathan, Jersey native, so I don't want to single out anybody here, but
Sure.
but you're representing the licenses, the licensee holders. So when they, I guess basically New Jersey promised legalization, obviously got it legalized as an opportunity for the little guy, right? That's kind of how it was pitched. Like from where you sit today, is that coming true?
So get back to your prior question about what are the biggest blockers right now or impediments. Yeah, I do think that the financing side is the capital impediment for the smaller operators and the new entrants and the craft operators.
Which is wild because when I would be talking to VCs, because I'd go to conferences all the time, not at MJ Biz, don't care to be at MJ Biz myself personally, but sometimes it's fun times. Vegas isn't really my thing. It's just too much for me. But when I go to these conferences and I talk to these VCs, and I know, most of the VCs that are in this world, they're just like, oh, Jersey. Do you have anything in Jersey? And I'm like, no, I'm in Massachusetts. Like, you're done. Where's New Jersey? What's going on in Jersey right now?
Well, what's funny?
So that was last year. I mean, that's like actually a lot of this year too. So like, it's so funny to hear capital constraints because I actually talked to a guy off a ledge because he was going to invest in a cultivation. He asked my advice and I was like, well, show me the deck and show me the presentation they gave you and the numbers and stuff like that. He shared all this with me. And the Jersey cultivator was literally saying like, oh yeah, it's like, $3,000 a pound or something like that. And I'm like, dude, run. There's no way you're going to get 3,000. Give it a year and it's going to go way down. It's going to be less than $1,000 after a couple of years. Like, you have to be able to survive at these low.
That can't be the business model.
Yeah, your business model can't be like, it's going to be $4,000 a pound forever. It doesn't work that way. And I think it's been proven out in so many states now, which is why it was very easy for me to be like, dude, look at the numbers. It's not like, I'll tell you Massachusetts does not go for, like, you can get some good bud for like $900 a pound, but you can also just get like C-grade stuff for like $400 a pound. You know what I mean? So it's nothing. It's like 4,000 though. It's kind of insane. So when I think about kind of like the math on that, I could see a lot of people trying to raise money and not being able to raise it because they put like bad numbers together. You're like, that's something transparent. You can just see right through it. In your case though, you're talking about, I think it's a micro business license, right? On the micro business side, is that like, that's a capital constraint is kind of like the big thing?
I think so. And so for my own venture, I've gone through all the sort of supposed steps that you're supposed to go through. Like I've gone to Benzinga, I've pitched at a Benzinga event, I've gone to MJ Biz. What I didn't get out of those was any checks written.
Right. Yeah. No, I've been in those audiences and I watch these people with all their hopes and dreams presenting and they're shaking. They're so nervous to be on the stage and they're getting through their presentation and everybody's like, oh man. And then they won.
Yeah.
And then not a single person wrote them a check.
Yeah. And so, I think that a big part of that, in my view, is really a bit out of our hands. That there was I think a 5-year period recently where there was some ETF of publicly traded cannabis stocks that lost 90% of its value.
Yeah.
So
the public markets definitely dissuade people without a doubt. But I had those conversations before.
Public markets are the only visibility that investors have into what's happening.
Right. So they see that and they're like, oh, this is not for me. And you're like, well, there's a lot of really great private companies though.
Yeah. Right. But so now we're talking about the difference between looking at financial statements that you're used to looking at,
right,
and then instead trying to discern and select. You're basically turning from a stock investor type of person into a micro VC.
Yeah.
If you want to go outside.
Yeah.
Right. Or that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And that is a different target, a different class of investor.
Yeah, 100%. And, that's one of the things I think that they don't teach you're going through this process, that they're different.
Yeah.
Because when I first started, I was like, oh, VC, angel, it's all the same thing. They both have money. So like, whatever, doesn't matter who I target.
No.
But eventually I found my home with angels because one-on-one conversations, I could have a very intimate conversation about like where we're going in the future and stuff like that. And I'd have these conversations with VCs, and a VC told me once, they were like, we're just going to plug your numbers into a spreadsheet, and your number's your number. Like there's no, that's your number, and that's what we'll invest at.
Right.
So if we don't want to invest at that number, we can part ways, no big deal.
Yeah.
But like, that's the number.
Yeah.
And so I walked away from a few people who were just like, you're just a number. And I'm just like, but we're more than that. And we still exist where a lot of our competitors don't. So it's like, for us, we're like, we're still here. So we're doing something right. And our valuations obviously have gone up significantly. But at the same time, angel is really where our backbone when we were getting started.
Yeah.
Did you raise from angels yourself? Or how is this funded?
Yeah. So I started my venture at the end of 22. So coming up over 3 years since I started laying the groundwork. And really quickly, the way that all started, the town where I live in New Jersey, Montclair, is one of the ones that is friendly to the industry. It was actually where the first medical dispensary in all of New Jersey was back in 2012.
Is it Northern Jersey?
Yeah, it is. It's Northern Jersey. It's in the New York City metro area.
Okay.
And so I had a tech job that I got laid off from, and I had a severance package. And I was like, I think this is the sign. This is that I should be finally doing a venture of my own.
Love it.
And right around that time, I started looking at real estate, because I understand that in New Jersey you have to have site control, which means that you have either a binding LOI, a letter of intent, or you are the owner or tenant of that space. One of those three things must happen before you get a license.
Yep.
So I started looking for spaces, called commercial real estate, commercial real estate. Hey, do you have any, looking for a cannabis business? They're like, oh, we have the perfect person for you. They had this real estate agent call me. She shows me some place that wasn't zoned properly. I was like, oh, you do a lot of cannabis things. She's like, oh, I'm a cannabis consumer, but I've never done this before. I was like,
that's funny. But the real estate broker who happens to consume, you're the cannabis person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She ended up helping getting us into the place where we are in the months later. So that was a great end to that. But what happened was I found this out. I was like, oh, I found this place where I got a binding LOI. They were willing to give it to me. It's tiny, 750 square feet, but whatever.
You just want to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
So I
was like, okay, now let me go apply for the town license. And I looked on the town's website. I was like, oh, the town ordinance said that the information about how to apply for a license will be on the town website, but I can't find it.
Yeah.
The town says to me, the clerk or someone in the town's clerk office says, oh, it's on the website. Just go to our news and updates. Scroll down to the fifth to last link. Click on that link. Now scroll to the bottom of that page. It's right there.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck finding that.
So I go and find it, and they're like, okay, application must be in by, I guess it was September 1st or something like that, 2022, right around then. And I looked on the calendar, and it was like August 28th. And so in this 48-hour period, I coordinated with my real estate agent, the landlord's real estate agent, the landlord, my lawyers, to get a corporation formed, to get that corporation to sign a binding LOI with that landlord, to get all the application materials together and get them into the clerk's office by 5 p.m. Friday. And we literally got it in at 4:20 p.m. that day. That's wild.
That's how it happens, though.
Yeah.
In many crazy instances, I mean,
not to mention with a $15,000 non-refundable application fee.
That's just egregious. A $15,000, not $1,500, $15,000 application.
And they actually get up to more than double that in certain places in New Jersey. That at the municipal level.
Wild.
So there was one other applicant.
Because there's no regulations on how much you can charge for an application.
That's right.
Because it's like, hey, you're applying, so, the town has to do work.
Yeah.
Not $15,000 worth of work potentially, but maybe, I don't know, they get town council, they're going to pay and stuff like that. But
so let me tell you what happens next. So then I get that $15,000 application in on time. And then, apparently the town is you're not going to get a peep out of the town for months and months about this. And in the meantime, the landlord gets cold feet. And she's like, what do you mean you need all these security cameras? I don't want all these security cameras on my property. Who's going to be coming around here inspecting? I don't want all this. This sounds like too much trouble. Forget it. No lease.
wow.
And now I'm like, oh God, I have this. I just floated $15,000 for this, and this municipality only. Now I have to go find another properly zoned spot in this town, of which there are not many, like you were saying earlier.
Yes.
I ended up renting a place in the next town over for a year as a backup.
Paying rent on it?
Fell through for 1 year.
Wait, were you paying rent on that space? Wow.
And that space was 1,000 square feet. So I was like, at least I'm going to now and then I'd have to go get another license in this town if I have to. If I can't find anything, what am I going to do?
Yeah, that's the scramble that in the early days of a market, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Like you're just fighting over these spaces because in Massachusetts, you couldn't find a space.
Yeah.
And I found the current space we're in on Craigslist because I was just hounding everything and I was making phone calls. It was like 3 phone calls away to somebody. They're like, I think there's a space on Craigslist right now. I should go check it out. And it was a big empty box. And I'm like, I'll take it. It's zoned right. I'll take it. And then I'll figure out what to do with the town afterwards kind of thing. You know?
Right.
But yeah, that's wild because an application fee on top of all that, we didn't have to pay an application fee. So that's good. I don't think I've heard too much of that in Massachusetts, but in Jersey, wow, even twice as much.
So yeah, in places like Jersey City, things like that.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're an MSO, you're like, all right, $30,000, that's just price of doing business. Go for it. But you're like taking out of your life savings practically at that point, I bet, right?
Yes. So yeah. And Montclair said that they were going to give out 1 manufacturing license and there were 2 applicants. And the other applicant was a multi-state and Canadian operator. And so that's the situation I was in.
So who are they going to go with?
Right? Yeah. Like, oh my God, who are they? Get this
financially secure backed, MSO.
Or turns out that this other company made some kind of clerical errors in their application. And now when you're doing a municipal application for something like this and you mess something up, there's something called a cure letter and a cure process. So the town will be like, hey, you forgot to include this required documentation. You have 2 weeks to get it to us.
Right.
And they basically didn't do what they needed to do during the cure letter process and got disqualified.
And now there's just 1.
And my company got the license.
That's wild.
And
what year is this now?
Now, this was during 2023.
Okay.
Now, that other company had, like I said, they have to have site control of some. They had the other good, properly zoned manufacturing location in Montclair, and they vacated it
because they were like, I can't use it anymore.
Call from my cannabis commercial real estate agent. She's like, hey, I know this place just became vacant. Do you want it? And it's 2,000 square feet. So now I went from 750 to 1,000 to 2,000. I'm like, you know what? I could do a lot with 2,000 square feet. Oh. I was thinking what I could do with the whole tiny house.
Okay, but landlords can be tricky. How immediately when they hear cannabis, are they doubling the rent?
So this building, there's 2 cannabis businesses in the same building. So it is a landlord that is more friendly to the industry than most.
So there wasn't a crazy upcharge or
I would say probably a reasonable one.
Okay.
But, there has been outright hostility too. I remember when I was looking, I was calling around different real estate agents and doing the legwork on my own. Yeah. I called one real estate office. I said, hey, I see you have this place listed. I'd like to look at it. So and so and so. And they're like, oh yeah, what are you going to do there? I'm like, well, it's for a completely legal,
legal
cannabis manufacturing operation. This guy on the phone says to me, forget it. I'd rather leave it vacant. I'm not going to show that to you.
Right.
And I don't even know if that's legal.
Yeah.
But that's the treatment that you sometimes get doing things like this.
Yeah, we would hear, I personally was told in a few cases when I was looking for my first property, they doubled it immediately. I said, cannabis.
Yeah.
This is also a little bit earlier and, this is like 2020.
Yeah.
But it was very much double the rent immediately as soon as you mentioned it's the great tax.
On the other hand, you can't be disingenuous about what you're trying to do.
No, of course you have to be upfront about it. And that's even the discussions today because there's a bunch of property around here now. We're like, all right, is this time for us to move? Like, should we expand and stuff like that? We're very upfront. We do not hide it in any way. We have to because it's at this point, Massachusetts is matured is. I like to say matured, but I also laugh at the fact that it's not matured because it's still so the instability is crazy here.
Yeah.
The velocity of the ups and downs and topsy-turvy side of cannabis is a real thing in Massachusetts, and whether it's prices of distillate or whatever, it's crazy still. Yeah. So nothing's matured in that sense, but a lot of people who have been in it for a minute have matured mentally. Like this is just how this world is going to work for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It adjusted again against that a little bit. But as you're going through and as you're starting this process, and I'm not going to lie, I have a really hard time pronouncing this because it's TLEHL.
I pronounce it TLEHL. TLEHL.
Do you think that would be a blocker for people? Are you going to do sub-brands that are not
absolutely
okay?
And yeah, I was
because naming branding is everything, right? Wait a second. You don't. Wait a second. When I think about branding, and I say this on your about page, and I know I apologize for the audience for skipping around really, really hard right now, but like, there's also this mention of Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
So we can pause on that for a second, but we're going to get back to that. But like, talking about TLEHL.
It's an acronym also. It stands for The Legal Eagle Has Landed. So that's what those 5 letters mean.
Oh, the legal eagle has landed.
Yeah.
And then, but you're not going to say that. You're going to say TLEHL.
I'm not going to say either. And
okay, there you go. That's what I was wondering. Is that, that's because I'm sure we're going to be like, what?
We mentioned working in tech. So I worked for a company for a while that's in news websites.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a company that owns websites like up here. I don't know what we have up here, but that company, but there's like nj.com, news websites that aggregate local news.
Yeah.
They're all over the country, NOLA.com, and that all owned by the same company, about a dozen of them in these news markets. And then they have advertising, and that's the business model. And the company's called Advanced Digital. And it's a privately owned company. They're owned by this Cy Newhouse, Staten Island, publishing magnate family. And they have, if you go to advanceddigital.com or whatever the website was, it looks like a 1990s website.
Like a dial-up AOL kind of website.
Who is it for?
Yeah.
Who is it? It's not really for anybody.
No.
What's for people is New Jersey, NJ.com, NOLA.com, AL.com,
right,
and so on and so forth. They don't care that you don't know that it's them. They don't care that they're not out there in front. And that's the kind of manufacturing operation I want to have.
Right. Because nobody knows Advanced Digital, but everybody knows from Jersey, NJ.com.
Yes.
So you're going to introduce sub-brands or just brands in general.
Yes.
That are being manufactured and processed through TLEHL.
Yes. So I'm, as we talked about Solventless, I'm, what I do see the majority of the New Jersey concentrate operators doing right now is doing both, doing resin and rosin, doing solvent-based and solvent.
Let's distinguish what those are. Resin versus rosin.
Sure.
Explain it to me like I'm 5. If you're into cannabis, entrepreneurship, or just like hearing from people who actually build things, check out High Functioning. It's real talk with founders, operators, and big thinkers. No fluff, just game. New episodes drop every Friday, and you can subscribe and listen at highfunctioning.show. All right, let's get back to the show.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, 21.
Yeah.
Because I should be legal to...
Or a medical patient.
A medical patient, yeah.
So I'm sure you're familiar. Have you ever heard of the drink Tang, the drink mix, the powdered drink?
Yeah.
Mix? Great. So I like to say that what we call rosin on the cannabis dispensary shelf is like fresh squeezed orange juice. And what we call resin on the dispensary shelf is like Tang, powdered. It's made with real cannabis.
Right.
Contains X% THC. And then you have it.
And terpenes.
And there's something it's not, all I can say is it's definitely not fresh squeezed orange juice.
Right.
And then
it'll be constituted.
And the fresh squeezed orange juice, and you're like, oh, this is so refreshing. This is so rejuvenating. This is, just what my body is telling me. This is just what I needed.
Yeah.
And so that is really the difference. The rosin is made through a mechanical extraction process with absolutely no chemical additives. The resin production process uses some kind of solvent. It could be butane, or it could be ethanol. It could be something like supercritical carbon dioxide. And I think there's an argument to be made that that's probably less bad than the others. But to me...
because people say like, well, that's not a solvent, is it? But in this case, you're going to supercritical. It's like, what is actually happening chemically?
Once you get to supercritical, once you have that kind of lab setup, then it facilitates all the other kinds of things that are being done on the solvent side.
Right.
Which, for example, CRC, the color remediation column. So this is literally a stage that this material goes through to make it look more like it's fresh.
Yeah.
And who do you think is out there bragging about that to consumers? Absolutely no one.
Right.
I didn't find out about that until like 2 years into my research,
Right.
getting ready for this.
Seriously. Yeah.
And so, to me, just putting your hash or cannabis into a press and squeezing this concentrate out is absolutely the gold standard.
Right.
And so we are going to only ever do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to have a brand, and the brands are secret right now, trade secrets until we launch and in the process of trademarking and so things like that.
Trademarking is another whole thing anyways, because the federal illegality.
Yeah.
The federal status makes trademarking really
super quick. There's like at federal, you can't trademark cannabis itself because it's federally illegal, but you could do like a lifestyle brand trademark.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, put it on t-shirts and call that the trademark. Yeah.
And then you would never know it if you weren't in cannabis, but there's also such a thing as a state trademark.
Yeah.
And if you were in a state where it's legal, you can get a state trademark for your cannabis brand.
Yeah.
So, but then what is that to do to protect you from other legal markets? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
So that is a little bit of a hiccup.
Yeah.
In it.
It's as another bunch of attorney fees that get attached to all that stuff.
But
yeah.
So the other, we'll be producing a few different kinds of product types, but our flagship will be that solventless and hash washing. And
since you're a micro, I think what are the limits? It's like you can have canopy yourself, but you're not going to grow.
We're not growing. Right. We don't have a growing license.
Okay.
So our limits with a micro in New Jersey are 2,500 square feet max. And
so 2,000 just underneath that.
Yep.
All right. And you still that space then that we talked about? 2,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And also a maximum of 10 full-time employees and a maximum of 1,000 pounds per month processed.
Wow. Okay. So when you plug that into the financial model, does it all net out positive for you?
It does.
Okay. Good.
But it also is a status where our license renewal fees are much lower.
Mm-hmm.
They're like 1,000 instead of 20,000 on somewhere in that order of magnitude lower. And also, once we are operational for 1 year, we can automatically graduate to the unlimited license, like to the license where we don't have those.
Interesting. So there's a pathway to even expand if you need to.
Yeah. But I will tell you that CAP, one way that my company is responding to that is that we will be using industrial robots and robotic automation very heavily in our operation.
How and what process? What step of the process?
So
industrial.
So this is something
I think of like the arms putting together like a Toyota car.
Yeah. I'm
like,
really glad you brought that up because something I've been deeply studying is the Toyota production system.
Oh, yeah.
And
there's a whole philosophy behind all that.
There is. And it's a philosophy that I think belongs in our industry and is overlooked too much in our industry.
This is product kind of going into the triple, what is it called?
So the triple bottom line is about people, planet, and profit, and holding those three things equally important. And like for my company, people, the way that we express that importance, first of all, is by making these great products for the consumers and being transparent and reputable in that. And also with our employees, we're going to be training all of our employees the way that Toyota does to do all jobs and to be leaders. And then we want to transform that company into a worker-owned cooperative like Canna Provisions. That is my company's, through an ESOP. That is my company's long-term plan. And so that's the people plank. As far as planet, we're going to be powered all by renewable energy. We're using community solar for starters in New Jersey. That
Rex, probably, right?
Yeah. Indoor cannabis cultivation.
Yeah.
Already consumes 1% of all electricity generated in the United States.
Yeah.
And it's projected to go up to like 3.5% by 2030.
Right.
Manufacturing, we're energy hogs ourselves. I'm putting in a 480 volt 3-phase upgrade. We're going to have deep freezers. We're going to have all these things,
some cryo, whatever. Yeah, like keep it super.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We're going to be at big consumers of electricity.
Yeah.
So doing that renewably is a great way to help the planet.
But that's through Rex, I'm assuming, right? Because unless does the building
by Rex? I'm sorry.
Renewable energy credits.
Oh,
and so
no. So there's a community solar program where we're actually it's through our utility in New Jersey where we are literally buying the solar that's coming off of other rooftops.
Well, it's all blended. You can't separate an electron from an electron necessarily, but yeah,
But I mean,
one has to go through that same grid. But that's what I'm saying. That's kind of like similar to a rec, basically. It's because we do our, because we're solar powered in a sense, also solar and wind, and we use all renewable energy here because we offset it. We just say like, hey, we're going to use this provider, which is 100% renewable energy as our electric source. So technically we're purchasing it from that. But at the same time, it's like those electrons aren't being like, there's not a special conduit in the electrical pipe that's just like, oh, that's just a renewable conduit.
It's like it's being accounted for.
Yeah, exactly. It's an accounting thing, which is like, okay, I pay for 100, kilowatt hours or whatever here, so that I'm going to get that credit for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and also the packaging. There's so much, more than half of all of our packaging is single-use disposable plastic in this industry.
I'm hearing a lot more people getting into more there's like more stores that are putting in for the carts and stuff like that, like drop off, so you can like bring your carts back and drop them off in these little bins.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like how much of that can be even recycled at that point?
So
at least it's going on the road at least.
I got a buddy named Jay Carfield, who has a company making vape making the batteries and the whole unit for vaping and to put the 510 threads in or whatever. And his gripe is that they put these lithium-ion batteries in these things that are designed to be recharged hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And then we recharge them maybe once and throw them away.
Yeah.
And he actually made it so that the batteries can be swapped out and you can buy ones with no battery. And I think that's
a great idea.
A good idea.
Well, because I think I just saw a guy on YouTube. I go since I'm a tech guy, my YouTube feed is like all kind of crazy with all kinds of weird stuff on it.
Uh-huh.
But like I saw this guy who took a bunch of disposable carts, which were I think for nicotine, because he's like a English-based YouTuber, and he took a bunch of these carts, popped open the batteries, checked them all to see like if they're good or not, and then literally created a battery pack that powered his like shed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, it's insane because there's thousands of cycles on these. People are just throwing
those the carts. So now think about all these bags that, these.
Yeah, the bags too. Yeah.
Zip 3, like those are never going to, it's the 1,000 bags, whatever. So
what are your packaging solutions then?
Well, I'm really looking at biodegradable. It's a challenge. It's a challenge in all industries right now. And I'm looking outside of cannabis to solve this.
I think you have to, because in many ways, people are like, well, use glass jars, right? So glass is, infinitely recyclable, which I love. I love glass.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, as the industry matures, you've seen a lot more people go to bags because, with solventless, you can't really do a bag. You really kind of need those glass jars.
Yep.
But I'm just talking about even flour started out with these beautiful glass jars, but eventually everybody moved away because they were like, well, for a tenth of the price, I can just get this bag.
Yeah.
And so when they're doing the accounting, they're just like, man, we're spending a ton of money on these jars. And it hurts me without a doubt, like mentally that's painful. But at the same time, like it's hard to be break even, never mind profitable in this industry.
Yeah.
So you did people, you did planet,
mm-hmm.
and then you did profit.
So profit is really where things like industrial robotic automation come in.
Yeah,
I
forgot about
that. And also, I in general, I think there's this theme that I've seen in the cannabis industry of us having a little bit of in collective introversion, where we only are looking at each other and ourselves, and there's so much to be learned from the rest of the world. Just because we get maligned by the rest of the world and we don't get SBA loans and all this other stuff doesn't mean that we can't look at what everyone else is doing and learn from those best practices.
But how are you doing industrial? Like, are you getting some? Like, there's going to be like a little pressing and bowl and hash and stuff. Like,
so obviously the elephant in the room that everyone loves talking about all the time is AI, right? And people can go on and on about ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to talk about any of that. I want to talk about what's happening with AI and robotics.
Mm.
And the big difference that's in the last 5 years that excites me and motivates me to do it this way is that these robot arms, as you described, have gone from being hard programmed to go to a certain point in Cartesian space and do a weld or do some kind of activity, and then wait for the next work piece to be brought to the exact position where it needs to be so that the right Cartesian space point is the place where the weld goes and then go. Now you can attach cameras to the arm and you can put on a VR headset and control the arm and you can train that arm kinetically yourself, and it's fun and engaging. And you can put the box over here and have the arm do something with it, or you can put the box over there and then teach the arm, okay, you know what, now it's over there instead of over here. I still want that thing, and it's using the camera to record that thing, same thing.
Right.
And then so this is called a combination of the technical terms sometimes escape me, but doing this operation, we call it, where you're controlling the robot through your gestures, is the one kind of training. Then let's say we create a simulation where the simulated robot's there, and then we say anywhere on the table, put the box, create a million random places for that box on that table and run a million trainings.
Yeah.
And then that robot arm comes out of it, doing that task anywhere in reach.
Right. 100%. And I think that's why, and so the training part of this is actually the crucial part here, because you can train it yourself, be like, here's the operation I want. Or like you were saying, like, I always want you to hit this specific point, right? And so you can hard program it to like always hit that specific point. So now I'm going a little bit backwards, but starting from there and then going into tele operations where you actually like show what to do and then train it that way, or the million, run simulation. And I think that's one of the things that it is hard and it's very compute intensive because, and it's funny how humans, there's something missing, because actually I think it was on a podcast I was listening to with a very famous AI researcher who was basically saying like, listen, you could run a 10 million, for a person to, park a car, it'll take them, a new driver a few days to learn how to park a car, but it'll take a AI like 10 million simulations to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is that compute intense kind of portion of this. But I guess what I'm really asking though is like, what part of your solventless process do you imagine that this actually applies to?
So,
or is it not the solventless part? Is it like filing paperwork, or I don't know? Like, tell me where does this fit into your cannabis business?
Let me just
because I'm a huge fan of like taking external ideas and applying to cannabis. 100%, I'm with you there. But like industrial robotics, though.
So let me say my little box piece about what's going on with AI and robotics and jobs and stuff right now. Okay. So a lot of people are afraid of AI destroying all jobs. If I look back in history for the closest similar things happening, I think about things like the printing press, right? So the Gutenberg printing press was invented. And back then, I'm sure there were people saying, this is going to put all the scribes out of business. And it did. It was bad for scribes, but it was good for Shakespeare.
Right.
It was good for anything other than a Bible that was going to be written down.
Yeah. Well, even the invention of writing implements, I think it was, I'm going to get my mythology wrong here, or not mythology, but like the Roman days, the Greek days of like Plato, whatever.
Toth.
Yeah. It was just like, if you have to write it down or something, your memory is going to go to crap because you have to write. Now you're going to have to write everything down.
Yeah.
So the invention of like
thousands of years, these things.
So your memory is going to get, not going to be as good.
Another example would be the car and saying the horse and buggy drivers are out of business. Yeah. But now that we have auto mechanics, like how many more auto mechanics are there than
all the jobs that were created?
Yeah.
Stuff
that we could have never imagined before.
Right.
And then one other really interesting data point, I think, is from the art world. This art critic from the early 20th century named Walter Benjamin. He wrote a very influential essay called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. And it was all about cameras and photography's impact on painting.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, well, what are the ways that we should assess or evaluate painting now that we don't need painters to give us photorealistic representations of things anymore. And it used to be that the more realistic it was, the more skilled you are as an artist. And right around that time was also the first Armory show in New York City in 1913, the explosion of modern art in the West. And you see conceptual art, abstract art, cubism, impressionism, all these things emerging in the context of there being photography. Right. Whereas maybe those things wouldn't have emerged otherwise. We could never have imagined them in the time before photography, I'm sure. And cameras didn't put painters out of business. So I think that a lot of us in this industry have a science fiction-y fear of robots and AI taking our jobs.
100%.
But I think that a lot of companies are doing it wrong right now, using AI wrong. Like, I think customer service AI is an awful idea. I think that what's going to happen in this same way as these other analogies we made with AI is that people are going to put a new value on humanness, which is idiosyncratic, fallible, and these things.
I agree with you on that one.
And
I think your people are going to be like, I don't want to talk to an AI ever again about this stuff. I want to talk to you.
Literally, they're going to reach a time where it's going to be like, hey, if you want to use regular Amazon customer support, it's a robot AI. But if you pay us for Prime, and you probably talk to a human, that's going to become a bonus, a value added feature, right? And so there will be jobs created for that, and I think that's great. But really, what it calls for leaders and business people is to discern where the human touch adds value and where it doesn't. So I did recently go on a tour of an Amazon fulfillment center in New Jersey. So Amazon, most people don't know, recently celebrated the deployment of their millionth warehouse robot. So
million robots.
There are over a million robots now packing and shipping your packages. If you buy something from Amazon, a robot handled that. I went for the tour. There's a big fence up at all the picking stations for inventory fulfillment. There's human pickers on one side of the fence. And on the other side of the fence, as far as the eye can see, there's these shelf robots. Robots that have shelving, four-sided shelving that can move around. It's like an autonomous shelving unit. And they all know how to get out of each other's way and rearrange each other. And they go back to home when they're not being used. And then when something needs to be picked, the right shelf comes to the human. And then a light shines on the particular shelf of that shelving unit. And the human goes in and picks the SKU.
Well, I was going to say, because that's the hard part, is actually like picking it up and like putting it somewhere potentially. So you still need the humans around to do that part of it until robots get better. Getting back to my original question, what specific about your process will robots replace or robots do?
So I personally think that the solventless extraction is the place where the human touch does add incredible value. So I don't really have interest in automating that. But I didn't really get to say I'll also be having a second sort of primary product line, which is going to be low THC value priced pre-rolls. And those are going to be mechanically,
there's machines that do all
that's all kinds of machines that do exactly right. So we're going to have those pre-rolls out in the market as well. And my strategy there is that I'm not a cultivator myself. So I'm not always going to be able to get top tier fresh frozen or whatever it is that I'm looking for in my solventless. And so when I can only get some lower quality stuff, that's going to go into the pre-rolls.
Right. Because you want to be able to put those out at a value price so people, because I think that's kind of where the market goes, but you can only be on one of those ends.
So those are
premium or value.
And those are going to be,
if you're in the middles, you're toast.
Totally. So I had two different brands for the market. One is just for the value pre-rolls and the other is just for the, top shelf solvent concentrates. And that's really one of the main reasons why I don't want to just have one company brand that is going to be on all the products, right? Because I don't want the consumer to say, well, why am I getting this?
Yeah, because we got in this conversation because it was this
brand that's getting...
Yeah, exactly. So the brand differentiation, I think, is really important there because you're going to be speaking to two different audiences as well. But I think that a lot of cannabis startup people, when they first get into the business, they're like, I love weed. I'm just going to make, all types of great products and stuff like that. And they realize that they fit somewhere in the middle. And they end up like not doing so well because they're just like, we do too many things for too many people and we don't really have a strong brand. And, a lot of people were just like, oh, let's stick a sticker on it and we're done. You know what I mean? They didn't do any brand building, right? They just were like, hey, here's our brand. It's called whatever. smoking nugs or whatever. I don't know.
It's kind of a crowded middle.
Yeah, it's a crowded middle where you're just gonna like you can't survive. You're just not gonna be able to survive there. So you have to have it has some value.
So all that to say, on that side, the pre-roll machine, I believe in the first year we will get to fully robotic pre-roll production.
So you just like somebody dumping in the flower, or is it even not a robot?
Even that.
Yeah. So just like,
I mean,
go pick it up of this shelf,
That's
crack it open, drop into this thing, and you get pre-rolls out of it.
I'm getting
and packing it
If I'm
into-
getting the cheapest pre-roll in the dispensary, I don't care how it was made.
Mm.
And that's, I believe, like, are you going to not go think about
Are you going to program this though? Are you going to program this thing yourself, or are you going to DIY it, or are you going to like find somebody?
Probably DIYing it and have a team a team of people that are into this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's fun. Willing to learn this kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a bunch of companies out there that are doing robots right now, and I've had the fortunate, anyway, I won't go into my experience with that stuff, but I will say that that's a super interesting space to be in because of all the opportunity. And I constantly see videos of like, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like, hey, this one will do your laundry, right? And then later to find out that it was actually powered by teleoperations to do it because they're still training it as they build it.
Yeah.
And then other times it's like, well, it works 1 out of 10 times and it'll like drop your clothes or whatever. Or when it tries to make your bed, it'll like maybe fall over occasionally or something like that. So it's like, it's still evolving. So I totally get that.
Yeah, I think that the general purpose humanoid robots have a long way to go. Yeah. I don't have any belief in that being around the corner. I'm more interested in these arms, these.
Gotcha. Because that's where I was imagining. So at one point I was imagining arms when you were talking. Then I was imagining these humanoid robots.
Yeah, no.
While you're going back to your arms,
I am very interested in robot shelves and in keeping my inventory that way.
Yeah.
I love the fact of not having my workers having to go and fish around in this place, and instead they open the wire mesh door and there's one shelf in front of their face and they pick.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be super duper, tank status like Amazon fulfillment.
Right.
But we can get a lot of mileage out of just doing that instead of having regular shelves.
No, I love it. So, like, have you, like, to this point so far, because this is going to go roundabout to robots again. To this point so far, it's been almost 3 years, right?
A little over.
Yeah. It's been a little over 3 years. And from that initial $15,000 application, how much have you raised? How much have you spent?
Yeah. All said, between all these properties that I had to rent and all the legal fees and planning board, land use attorney and on and on and on, exploring trademarking, so on and so forth over 3 years, it's been over 300,000 out of my own pocket.
Yeah.
Well over, probably closer to 4. I've gotten another, mid 5 figures in from friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with what I got from my friends and family.
Right.
You may have a more wealthy friends and family out there.
You make all you do, But
I did, and really quickly before, I'm absolutely happy to keep talking about this, but just to put a pin in the robot stuff.
Yeah, go.
So I'm out there speaking to potential investors right now, and really most of them look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them that this is the way that things are going. But if you look at Amazon didn't just put all these other companies out of business because they have a snazzy brand name and a nice website.
Right.
If you're not doing things this way in 2025, you are at a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's happening in every other industry. And it is happening here too. And those of us that don't know it are just not in the loop.
Yeah.
And so
let's not let all the secrets out because we're also heavily invested in a lot of AI stuff ourselves.
All right.
So us internally, we're constantly beating that drum.
Yeah.
In fact, it came back to us at one point because we were interviewing for a new position. And I think by the time the person got to me as like the final interview, like yay or nay, which is mostly yay at that point, because it's like they've already talked to so many people in their company. By the time they get to me, it's just like they just want to make sure that like I'm approving things. So I'm talking to this person, and then I later learned after the fact that she said after like the first day on the job, she's like, everybody asked me about AI and how much I knew about AI. That's how intense the process was about AI. So because everybody on my team has been trained up so much and are continuing to advance on that level. We're on that like
page on it.
The person, the first day, you're like, man, I've never been asked so many questions about AI in my entire life. Everybody asks those questions and everybody had different perspective on it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, there's a ton of value in doing some of these things. We can't overdo it, but we have to make sure we understand when to apply it, when not to apply it. Like you were saying, no on customer service.
Mm-hmm.
I may debate that at one point, but we'll let that slide for now. But because I'm a tech guy too, in New York City as well. So I had a lot of fun in New York City and in Manhattan and Brooklyn and stuff like that. But when it comes to the spend, so you've already put all that money in, like, do you still have the cash behind you to continue to move forward? Like, are you seeing the daylight through the tunnel here?
So, another big part of the cost was all the architectural planning.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a completely gutted facility which is great in a way. The other place I was renting, it was like, shoehorning into this,
there's like really off the line. Like, I don't need that.
Yeah. Like really just suboptimal.
Yeah.
So this is now we are just building out fit to purpose, state of the art, CGMP, like, and that's another thing I want to talk about is standards. So let's leave time for that.
Sure.
So,
are you getting to the finish line?
Yeah, we are so close to the finish line now.
The starting line, sorry.
We are the finish line of the starting line, yes. And, or the lap. Yes, we're coming around on this lap.
Yeah.
So, things were starting to get a little tight a few months ago, and I started looking for investors probably over a year ago. I started that journey. But I did take on my first minor equity partner a few months back.
Okay.
And that was someone that I did find through not one of the things,
whatever.
From off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And it was because I was doing these golf cannabis consumption events with dab bars at an indoor golf facility. And then through a friend of that owner of that business, got hooked up with this general contractor that does a lot of cannabis build outs and was willing to do it for equity. So now
there you go.
The build out is being financed by my minor equity partner.
So they're doing it. Of course, they're doing it at their own cost internally.
For them cheaper. Yeah, they're going to do the construction. We're actually subcontracting out the MEP, which stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Yeah.
And all with a team that I'm really happy that I have working on all of that.
That's good. Yeah, because I've heard horror stories with build outs and contractors taking a long time. We had problems with ours, unfortunately, which we'll probably never use again for our original build up. But yeah, there's some horror stories out there of like, it's clear what the architectural documents say, you didn't quite build it to that standard, or somebody didn't take into account some kind of like egress or whatever. Sure. It's like,
yeah,
we got to rip down the wall now.
Yeah. I mean, for someone just getting into brick and mortar, this is never going to be a walk in the park.
No.
Even when you have an equity partner, it doesn't just mean that they sign checks for you when you snap your fingers. That is a continuing negotiation. That just is going to happen day in and day out until it's done.
Yeah.
So if you're not ready for something like that, maybe don't think about doing a build out.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm not trying to say it's a rosy, all roses, but things are moving forward. We're just about to put in our permits for building, right? So we're gathering together our what are called construction jackets and things like that. So
you get the certificate of occupancy, the CO, right?
All that stuff is actually, we're just at that point. So
that's
I've actually already framed it out. We're already starting to do some stuff that we can do before the permits.
Well, so what happens after the build out? Do you have to go through a final inspection?
Exactly.
In New Jersey, it's called what's the regulatory body?
The CRC.
CRC, that's right.
Yeah, so Cannabis Regulatory Commission.
CRC, exactly.
So that once we're fully licensed, as my company is, then we go through our build out, we get our security systems in place, we get our equipment in place. As a manufacturer, we're going to have to show that we are doing all the compliant things like having hot and cold running water, not just in a bathroom, but there in a cleaning area, having the security, having the all stainless steel tables, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And your investigators, do you have a relationship with them yet?
Yeah. So they haven't been to the facility yet, but we've been communicating. And we do use that term. Field investigator is the person who will come and final.
Yes. And I've heard in other states that sometimes you'll have like somebody from the Board of Health come in also or something like that. The investigators themselves, field investigators themselves, they should be trained up enough to know what to look for kind of thing.
Yes.
Have you heard, because this is one of the things that we have in Massachusetts, is we're all hoping for equal enforcement because sometimes it's the opinion of the investigator versus actually like and their interpretation of the regulation versus somebody else's interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find there's any mismatching of inequality of enforcement in the investigator side?
From what I've heard, I haven't really heard of people having problems in New Jersey at that stage.
Okay.
All of the hiccups and challenges have really been at the municipal level for most people that I heard about.
Okay.
In New Jersey.
Are they reasonable people, do you feel?
At the state, at the CRC, overall, yes,
Okay.
I would say so.
What has been like the biggest bottleneck besides maybe capital? Has it been regulators then?
Again, the biggest bottleneck in New Jersey is the municipalities.
That's still municipalities.
100% by far. When you talk about regulators, you might as well be talking about 565 town councils.
And yeah,
You know, that's how New Jersey is.
right.
And that's part of what maybe makes some potential investors leery as well, is like not knowing the lay of this land.
Yeah.
Or not understanding how.
Well, that's it. That's part of it. Isn't it? Like it's, you know, it gets passed and then the towns have to figure out what to do with that information. And then like they can either zone it to death or they can just say it's out of the 5 things, none of them are allowed.
Yeah.
So I feel like Montclair is fully allowed. So there's retail also there.
Yeah. But it's written into the ordinance. We have the zoning ordinances already written for where the different classes should be. So the retail should be in the C1 district. And,
Right.
you know,
Are there retailers in Montclair?
there was one, and there are at least 2 that are building out right now. So we're all just
one
Ascend had a location in Montclair and then they left.
to a different part of the state, or
Yes,
just
to a different part of the state.
they didn't like the looks of Montclair?
I don't have all the details about what.
Interesting. Have there been store closures outside of like that kind of?
There was no parking around that location. I think it was a hassle for.
But I'm more interested in general for Jersey. Have there been store closures that have been like notable?
Out of, you know, a few hundred, I've heard about literally 4 or 5.
Okay.
You know, like I could mention one in Jersey City that was right along this highway where there was another one with a much better kind of like driveway, like a little cul-de-sac type of driveway thing you could go in. The one that without that closed. Raekwon and a few other hip hop artists and people had a big dispensary, you know, 2 big dispensary in Newark called Hashtoria, and that closed surprisingly. But they had so many problems with the town. They wanted to put with the city of Newark, I think they wanted to put all kinds of art on the facade that was considered inappropriate and all these other things, and it took forever. And then I think I don't even know why that one made me sad.
Yeah.
To see that close. I think that so the thing about the New Jersey market is, like I said, it's already $1 billion market. I do think
Out of 250 stores too.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that there's, so the 250 is just for the adult use. So there are some more medical that I didn't include in that number.
Was medical still, because we saw once adult use happened, medical kind of dropped off pretty quickly in Massachusetts.
In 2024, it was about 70-30 split.
70 adult use, 30 medical.
Okay.
And that's $1 billion a year, right?
Total. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, let's regroup on a couple of things really quickly. So a couple of things that come to mind. I did drop Scott Galloway's name. What's that relationship?
Well, so I went to business school. I got my MBA at NYU, at the NYU Stern School of Business. And while I was a student there, he was teaching brand strategy.
So brand strategy from Scott Galloway.
Yes.
Okay, take me through that.
So I got to take that class with him. He is, I am just a fan of his personally. But in this vein specifically, all right. Now, he himself is a student of a man named David Acker, Aaker. And he is widely considered the father of modern branding. So I would challenge you to go on Google and type in the father of modern branding and see someone else pop up.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
You know,
I'll have to do that.
I consider myself a disciple of the grandmaster of branding. I really feel like branding is my kung fu.
Yeah.
I remember one of his classes, we were talking about personal branding. And he asked the question, this was, about 15 years ago now. He asked the question, what American has the greatest personal brand of all time? What American person?
How about, I immediately think of presidents for some reason, like JFK.
I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I didn't think of presidents. We had a few guesses in New York City. I said Muhammad Ali.
That's a good one.
And he was like, ding, ding, ding. That was what he considered the strongest personal brand. I thought about Muhammad Ali. I said, this is a person who speaks truth to power, doesn't care on his own name, standing on his own business. This is a person who successfully rebranded himself.
Yeah. That's a rebrand. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's someone
I think almost like multiple times in a sense, if you think about it, because of his opposition to like Vietnam and stuff like that. He had a rebuild because he was like the champion.
Yes.
And then he paid huge penalties for not going along with everybody else in Vietnam, for instance. So I feel like, but it's funny because a lot of these things, if you think about it and put it in the lens or the frame of today, the modern contemporary kind of like influencers and stuff like that, you know, people might say like Mr. Beast or something like that today, right?
Sure.
So it's funny because we're only a generation away from like a Muhammad Ali changing the world in some ways, and actually a few ways. And now thinking about like the next generation, do they even know who Muhammad Ali was?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or what it was like for someone
in that moment,
see that role in society.
Back in like the 70s and seeing it happen in real time and being like, it's a decisive thing. And then 10 years later, he gets kind of redeemed in a sense, being like, I was right the entire time kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And not knowing like this generation that's coming up right now, look back at that and be like, oh, that was actually a really powerful thing. And they only look at it in black and white film. You know what I mean?
So to talk again about that crowded middle, when I look at the landscape of brands in the cannabis industry, I think we have a lot of room for improvement. You know, I mean, I think we have a lot of very juvenile brands in the market. I think we have a lot of brands created by people who are very good at drawing and doing art and think that is the same thing as creating logos and doing packaging, because it's not.
It's not the same thing.
You know? So I like to tell people for these 3 years, it's been like a revolving. I've been a solo founder. Everyone else has been these fractional revolving people coming and helping at different times. Like the little, single serving task force I had to get the local license application in, right? But there have been 2 people that have been with me almost since day one, and that is my bookkeeper and my art director. So for this whole time, we've been laying a solid foundation for accounting, which is going to help us have used now time-proven and tested 280E mitigation strategies to help our bottom line from day one, right? With things like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, but things like 470.
That episode's coming.
Right. But so we are going to have a little bit of a healthier bottom line than some of our competitors that don't put forethought into those things, right?
And the art director is interesting.
So the art director is an old buddy of mine, old high school friend, college roommate, former bandmate, and then he moonlights designing our brands and our packaging.
Are they fully developed at this point?
At this point,
they're locked in.
We're doing our die cuts right now, or whatever they're called. We're laying it all out.
So, and what was the process like? Did you have an idea and you sent it to him or her?
We would meet like for an hour or 2 meeting every few weeks, and go over these ideas and just ideate and come up with different brand names and different logos, and have used basically vision boards and just do that.
Did you get any external validation or surveying like that, or is it just all internally developed? And would you shun external advice until it's launched, kind of thing?
It's not that. It's that because of the problems around trademarking, and that I've chosen to treat these like trade secrets all the way through. For 3 years, I haven't told anyone what these brands are. Now, what's funny is that the pre-roll brand we got early. We got like a year in. We got the idea for the pre-roll brand. We love it. It's solid. We have the logo. It looks great. I have the prototype packaging sitting on my workbench, like literally there, like how it's going to look.
Mm-hmm.
The concentrate brand, we iterated again and again. We held up a brand. We were like, this is going to be it. And we poked holes into it until we decided that it wasn't going to be it.
Yeah.
And I think we went through 5 or 6 to land on the one that we landed on, where we're like, oh no, this is solid. There's no way we could ever do better than this.
Right.
This feels like this could be a category leading brand. And that is what we're about to bring. It's like, so build the hype engine up. But.
No, but I appreciate that, because what I'm going to ask next is, what happens if it fails? What happens if people doesn't resonate with the people?
Like, because you're going through, is it like, are you looking like, because sometimes founders are so close to it
Sure.
that they develop an entire brand around who they are in a sense versus what people actually are going to buy.
So I'll tell you this about the brand. I looked at what's out there right now, and I felt that two big problems. One is that we got long names on tiny packages. Two is that I don't know until I look at the fine print on the label that has the SKU information, whether this is fresh squeezed orange juice or Tang.
Is it? Yeah. I know what you mean that. And it's still a resin comparison.
We have a brand that is going to look great on tiny packages and make the consumer have zero confusion that this is fresh squeezed orange juice of cannabis.
Right. So,
and if it fails,
So my question was, what happens if it doesn't resonate with the audience, or because buyers could be fickle also. The people who are buying
it may not resonate, but it will resonate.
Perfect. I love it.
So that's not the brand. So
Resonate, yeah.
But on top of having our own house brands, we are aggressively seeking contract manufacturing. So that is going to be our other revenue stream. So that means we want to do house brands for dispensaries.
Do you think you have, with a limit of 10 people, do you think you'll have enough?
There's no limit on the robots.
Fair. Are you actively making a robot right now?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was going to, because that's why it's like, because when I think of robots, I think of, like 3 years from now, we'll have a robot doing it.
That's the other thing.
Literally making robots,
that
right?
really excites me about. So I recently got a 3D printer and I'm prototyping.
Oh yeah, I love my 3D printer.
Yes. And learning about different kinds of servos and capstan drives and things like that.
Yeah.
For sure. And over these last several years, we've gone from the entry point into this stuff being like 5 figures, mid to high 5 figures, to being like 3 figures.
Yeah, you can buy everything on Amazon,
figures,
and you get some open source software
to get started. Right? There's many open source robotics projects out there right now, and I'm exploring using those open source robotics in the operation for starters. Once if we are very successful and we have a lot of money, maybe we're going to get our pharmaceutical grade IP68 waterproof joints.
Well, because I think about that, when I think about that stuff, I think about, again, my journey as a technologist coming through and developing all these tools internally for the team. We now have software. We have a full-time and a part-time software engineer on staff.
Yeah.
For such a small company.
Yeah.
I think that's fairly unheard of.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of this can be solved with technology. And so we like to automate as much as possible. So we just get everything done way more efficiently than all of our competitors, and keeps our prices reasonable, right? And profitable. So when I think of that stuff, I think about all of, like, when I write code and I deploy code, and then I go run the business too. And then somebody says, hey, this stopped working. Can you look at it? Now I'm the IT person.
Yeah.
Now I got to go troubleshoot and stuff like that. So I do caution a little bit to be like, yeah, you can DIY it. I'm sure you're going to make a great robot that's going to work 99% of the time. But that 1% of the time where it breaks, people are going to be like, hey, Dab, it's broken. Like, can you help fix it? And you're like, I'm in a meeting with like venture capitalist or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
So you might have to have a software engineer before you have a operations person for all we know. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I do foresee hiring people with a tech orientation, if not a experience, so that we all learn how to fix the robots.
Because the Japanese kind of mindset also, like, everyone should know how to.
So there's one great example from this book I've been reading called The Machine That Changed the World. It's by several authors, but it was led by a guy named Jim Womack, who was an MIT professor, right? And it's all about the Toyota production system and what was happening in the late 20th century with these Japanese car companies like Toyota and Honda becoming the global leaders. And again, it wasn't just because they had a fancier body on the car. It was because they were doing something fundamentally differently. And one great example is that, and they contrast it with the terms mass production versus lean production, right? So in mass production, which is what Ford was
going to say Ford
at that time,
and Troy,
the authority to stop production was vested in the foreman of the manufacturing operation, and the line workers were not allowed under any circumstances to stop production. By contrast, in lean manufacturing system in Toyota, there was a string strung all along the production line, and any worker could reach up and pull the string,
Like a bus.
stop the entire production line at any time for any problem.
Right.
And over time, what happened was, and they were tracking this quantitatively, was that the foreman was stopping the line quite frequently in the mass production, but the line was never stopping in the lean production. Because for whatever reason, they stopped that line once, that problem never would happen again, because they would take the time to solve it.
Right.
And improve it right then and there.
Right.
And if they have to mitigate it, they would mitigate it and do something stopgap, and then they would solve it. I worked in tech for a long time. What we call lean and agile, time and time again, it would be like, well, the bugs, we can't handle the bugs. We'll just have a separate bug bucket, and like our scheduled work is going to be the thing that we do our lean stuff with.
Right.
And that completely misses the point of lean. It's kind of a perversion of lean. And I only learned that after getting my head into manufacturing. So again, coming to Massachusetts from New Jersey, I was reading a little bit about the region and thinking about it on my way up here.
Yeah.
And
What are your thoughts?
there's a bridge that connects Boston to Cambridge over the Charles River, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
It's called the Mass Ave Bridge, right? Now, if you walk along that bridge, there are these markings. 1 smoot, 2 smoot.
Yeah, Smoots.
It's marked off in suits. And there was a man named Oliver Smoot, who is a MIT, frat pledge or something. And he was the shortest one in the gang. And one of the seniors was like, okay, if you want to be in the frat, you got to go measure the Mass Ave Bridge in smoots.
Yeah.
And then they went out there, they took a piece of string, they held it up. He's like, okay, 5'7.5". All right. And they started putting the string out, making the markings. The senior comes over. What are you doing? I told you to measure it out in smoots. They're like, we are. He's like, no, you're measuring it out in string. And they're like, what do you want us to do? Lay him down every 5 and 7.5 and then chalk off where his head is and then do it again? And he's like, yes, that's exactly what I want you to do. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
Now, Oliver Smoot, ironically, went on to become the chairman of the International Standards Organization.
What? I didn't know the end of that story. That's amazing.
Do you know that we even have a standards organization for cannabis?
Yeah, we do.
Within the ASTM, the American Society of Testing and Measures or something is what initially stood for. But so there's a committee called the D37 Cannabis Committee. They just in 2024 released cannabis good manufacturing practices documentation. Now, if you're not looking at that as a manufacturer, that's your loss.
Yeah.
We need to be taking advantage of these best practices that are out there globally.
Do you think CGMP at micro business scale matters?
I do think it matters because the spirit of CGMP is to respond in a nimble manner to adverse events. So what if we have mold in the facility? What if something else, some other kind of contamination?
Mm-hmm.
A CGMP facility can be washed down very quickly. You can be back in business the next day.
So what about because I think about the micro business scale, which is where you're at today, in 5 years from now, we don't know, but is it a substantial cost to do GMP?
I mean, it's really just a cost of for what we're doing getting started. It's a cost for the floors and the walls, like epoxy. So it's like, I mean, it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean,
But you have to have an auditor come in, check all the boxes.
So it's the same thing as with organic. All right. You can grow without any pesticides and then sell that produce, but you can't say it's organic unless you went and got some regulatory
check all the boxes,
stamp of approval, right? But there are people out, we can't get an FDA stamp of approval because we are federally illegal.
But there are companies out there like GMP Collective, like Dave Delancourt. Sure. Been on the pod before.
Yeah.
That does GMP kind of audits and stuff like that.
I don't know that that's something I would go out of my way to do right away. Because I don't think that that's our main selling point. It's something that we're doing internally for our own edification.
So you're going to do it to the GMP standard, but you won't be necessarily GMP. Maybe when it goes federally legal, then you're like, okay, now let's get that designation because it's probably going to be required at some point.
Yeah,
like
that too. Yeah, so it's kind of like, even if it gets down to Schedule 3, FDA might start coming in and requiring this kind of stuff. Yeah.
So where do you see, as we start to wrap here, where do you see the future going here for you? Like, obviously you want to get launched without a doubt, but like you're going to have 2 separate brands in 2026.
Yeah.
On the market.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're also reaching out to maybe preemptively reaching out to buyers and stuff like that. And I saw you at the after party for a what a show.
It was either House of
Hall of Flowers. Yeah, because Revelry was the previous month, or previous few weeks ago. So I saw you there, obviously making connects, and that's the New York market. Although there's probably some New Jersey people around a little bit.
Yeah, so I lived in New York City for about 20 years. So that maybe is what's next beyond what we're doing here, as I would like to get my brands.
So in the next 5 years, you'll have 2 brands launched plus potentially a New York presence.
Yeah.
With your Solventless, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to bring both brands into New York as well as New Jersey.
So you're the tastemaker ultimately, right? Because you're gonna actually, everything you make, it has to hold up to the Dab quality, right?
Yeah. I want to spread that, that qualitative quality assurance work among the staff.
How much room is there for a solventless producer? Because is there already solventless producers on the market in Jersey?
There are a few, but it's still very nascent. It's still very young, I think. Again, this is a subcategory that really can only flourish in a mature legal market as far as I see it. Because if you're just getting something from a street plug, how can you ever verify whether it was made with a solvent or without?
Right.
And then
could it just be some BHO?
Yes. And that does happen, because there's a premium on solventless. People often pass off solvent-based to solventless. And
that's where I'm going to, though. So it's like, if the future is solventless in your head when it comes to like your particular product lines, are you considering, in your financial modeling, are you putting in like, okay, in year 5, it's going to look like this for our books? Like, how far have you planned out kind of your journey?
Yeah, so we have done that. Yeah, we've done some pro forma financial projections, which is the technical term for that stuff, right? I mentioned I have an MBA, so I know what discounted cash flow valuations and all these things are, like, maybe to my detriment. But, so yeah, we've done that. But to me, and to most investors, if you ask me, those are really just all imaginary numbers anyway.
Of course, you can't project.
So
what's your break even then? So like, how many units do you actually have to sell of your solventless today in order to like just afford to keep the lights on?
So what we have done isn't that number of units, but what we have done is we've modeled out 2 different projections. We've modeled out a demand-based projection and a capacity-based projection. So we look and say, if we're going to have 10 employees, we're going to have this many presses, we're going to have this pre-roll machine with this capacity, this hash washing with that capacity, how much can we produce with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we say, okay, and what's our wholesale price? And then how much can we potentially make? And then we combine that with a totally different projection, which says, what percentage of the dispensaries do we think we're going to be able to get into? And what is their demand going to be for our products? And in either one of those, we are really looking at basically 3 to 4 months into operations, breaking even and starting to be in the black.
So in 2026, you mentioned to be break even.
Yes.
Which is great because you don't want to bleed any more cash. I'm assuming. So that's an awesome projection. Are you projecting also price compression?
Yeah. So price compression is the reason that I decided to only be a manufacturer and not vertically integrate right away. My view is that the manufacturer is the most insulated of all in the price compression scheme. Obviously, go ahead. Obviously, if the price of flour goes way down, we are the people buying that flour too, not just the consumers. So we benefit from that low price of flour. But then obviously we're going to turn around and charge a lower wholesale price, and consumers will expect a lower price for our value-added products. But at the end of the day, we are adding value. And that value we are adding will also have a price attached to it, always. Mm-hmm. So always somebody's going to pay whatever more than it costs me to have a person working.
Of course.
To make that much.
So that's what I'm getting to, is the fact that, like, because we started the conversation almost there too, like $4,000 a pound, it's never going to go down or whatever, where I dissuaded this person from investing in this cultivator because I was like, they're blowing smoke. Like, there's no way it's going to be $3,000 a pound forever. Now, but as price compression happens, everything comes down to the market, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about even solventless products, which are premium products. They're going to also have a little bit of price compression. It doesn't necessarily have to be this way, but people get greedy and they also are afraid of losing market share. And so other solventless companies are going to undercut you within the first year as price compression happens, right? So it's like they're going to undercut you, and then a consumer is going to look on the shelf and be like, all right, I can get Dab's dabs, or I can get Fred's dabs. Fred's dabs are $5 cheaper, and they have like, I kind of like Stronana or whatever it might be. Like, I'm going to go for this one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's kind of getting tricky, because it's like, now do you meet people? Do you keep your prices high because it's premium and people should be willing to pay for it? Then suffer the consequences when it doesn't move as fast. And then buyers get anxious because they're like, well, your product's not moving that fast. Why should we make another order? Or do you match that price? Or do you go with the buyer, and the buyer's going to request you to match that price because they're like, listen, your grams are, $50 and everybody else is at 45. You got to come down to 45. Like, there's a lot of these conversations that there's a bunch of what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously throwing at you right now,
For sure.
which I'm not trying to dissuade you from, pursuing obviously the dream because you're in it. But like, the realities are, as the market, for lack of a better term, matures, as we age through this market, and having seen all these different things, and having Massachusetts looking at West Coast and seeing California price compression happen, and seeing it on the wall and be like, well, it's coming here. Give it a year. It'll be here. Same thing in Jersey and in New York. Be like, give it a year.
Sure.
It's coming, right? So by the time you launch, prices might have already started feeling that compression.
Mm-hmm.
So your financial models are already kind of been, putting a little bit of that into play.
Sure.
Like, when you launch, what does 1 gram solventless go for right now?
In Jersey?
Yeah, in Jersey.
At retail, it could really, it pretty wildly varies. It's all the way from like 60 all the way up to over 100.
Right.
The market is like complete static right now because it's just so new, and there's not.
That's the best thing. And there's a lot of capital that you need to get into this market, but once you're in it, it feels great.
Yeah.
Until it doesn't, because price compression. But like right now, you're at the point where when you launch, everything's gonna be fucking. You're gonna be doing it right.
So
But then what happens?
I have two kind of responses to that. One is that I'm not trying to ever position us as the most premium offering in the market. Whenever I bought a laptop throughout my career, I always never bought the best one. I always bought the second best one because it was like so close, but it was like a lot less money. And so I basically want to be positioned there. I like that positioning the best. So that would be our sort of lodestar of like, okay, we want to basically stay there in the market, right? In terms of deciding whether we want to follow do the chase downwards or not.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm, because I always think we're beholden to the buyers in many ways, because the buyer dictates what's on their menu, and the buyer also has been given a specific budget. Depends on the store, but it works a little bit. Sometimes the owner is the buyer too, right? Sometimes the buyer is like somebody that was in the True Room like the month before, and now is all of a sudden the buyer. It's like wild, the variations of experiences in buyers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but when you talk to specific buyers, they're the ones who are dictating like, all right, I've got $100,000 to spend this week. I'm going to buy X amount of solventless. I'm going to pre-rolls and flour or whatever. And when they come to you and you're like, hey, we're at this wholesale price, and our case packs are 20 or whatever it might be, and our minimum order is X, like say $2,000 or whatever it might be, like the buyer then has to do this calculus in their head to be like, okay, does this still fit on my shelf? And if you're at the wrong price, you may not fit on their shelves anymore. And so there's that awkward conversation. You'd be like, well, it sold really well. And then you got to prove it to them, like, our velocity was like this in your store, so you should be bringing us back in or whatever. So those conversations will happen. Do you have a salesperson yet, or are you the salesperson?
Right now, I'm the salesperson.
Are you reaching out to stores right now and be like, hey, we're coming?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah, and I'm also getting a bunch of non-binding LOIs for now.
Okay.
Like supply.
Yeah, non-binding LOIs. That was a thing back in the day too, in Massachusetts. Because that would to prove it out to people that like we exist and we're a real company.
Yeah.
What is the solventless market right now? What size approximately? Does the CRC release any of those numbers?
They don't. They do concentrates as a whole. They don't parse it out.
What's the concentrate market out of that $1 billion in 2024?
It's low. It's not. It's probably 3 or 4% to my memory. I would want to get back to you on that number, but it's still like 3-4%. If you look at other markets, it's more than that.
Yeah.
I see that
Massachusetts might be 10, 12. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the
Again, I think it's just a lack of awareness. And that's one of the other reasons I'm not interested in kind of like extortion level pricing, is because I do want to make this accessible to more people, even though it is a premium product. So those are some of the factors that are going to.
Well, automation will get you pretty far with scale, right? Because I think that's what a lot of things that people miss is the fact that you don't have, if you don't prepare for the future by knowing that price compression is going to happen, and you're just like la-di-da-di-da, $3,000 a pound, whatever, and it's all going to be great in roses and butterflies and daisies.
Yeah.
However, if you come to the reality that it's going to happen at some point and you can still automate your way through it, and you can keep, your buffer, your margin to be able to bring that down a little bit in order to get it in front of more people or something like that. Like there's value in actually doing these calculations in advance because you have the luxury of having time right now.
Yeah.
Of course, there's construction happening and stuff like that. And you're going to monitor a bunch of stuff. When you're in it, especially in the first month or two, you're going to be pants on fire. Alarms are going off. You sell.
Yeah.
Machine broke. Let's go run and fix the machine real quick.
Yeah. So I am actually at the point, I think it makes sense to form a board of advisors. And I'm really just making my kind of decisions about who I'm going to be reaching out to about that. And I do think that having someone, I'm not a natural salesman. I was always a tech guy, but I always worked with sales and marketing departments because I was a data engineer. So I would work very closely with those departments more than I liked. I did Salesforce development and all this other stuff, Apex sales language and all. Anyway, so I was never that far off, right? Like I understand the difference between field sales, inside sales, incoming, outgoing, all this other stuff. But it's just not my, default setting, And so I do want to bring someone in for that. But what I have been doing over this entire 3 years is running the gamut of all the local stuff that leads up to the Benzingas and MJ Bizzes of the world. And so, I do think I've made myself a factor in the New Jersey market. And I think that is really where we're going to be getting into stores off of really the business development that I've been doing over years.
So you grow your personal brand as well?
Yeah, I would say, I think so. Yeah. I mean, people, I think I'm the only person named Dab in New Jersey, and that really helps a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been called the notorious DAB. I've been called the mayor of New Jersey Cannabis. So, I'm out there, I'm pounding the pavement.
Yeah.
And
well, you made the trek all the way up here too. Yeah. To appear on the pod, because we do have a New Jersey constituent audience, but Massachusetts, obviously we have a lot of people from Massachusetts listen to us, but tri-state area, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, even Rhode Island people, stuff like that. Like they're all listening. So but super excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Jason. It was great.